Hello guys, it's Apocalypse6 back with another video. This time I've coerced one of my friends into playing Burn against me as part of my effort to play a bunch of bad matchups. So this is going to continue until 5 wins, and this is a really good hand. Turn 1, I mean, we're going to keep this in the blind for the first game, but it's also just really good against Burn. Chalice turns off like half their deck, especially if it's on turn 1, so they can't get a Goblin Guide or whatever. So in terms of the cards that are like probably the better cards in the matchup, like it's obviously Chalice is the best thing you can be doing. Deathrite Shaman gains life, so it's pretty good. Gaddock Teeg shuts off their fire blasts. Knight deals damage, and sacrifices lands for price of progress. Wasteland blanks their price of progress also, or it like mitigates damage from price of progress. Here we're like a little menace because we didn't draw land, which is fine. We play Sylvan Library, pass to them. We can't play Deathrite Shaman. I'm not feeling getting a Dryad Arbor, just because it's a second on basic. It's we're just going to draw another land from Sylvan Library. The odds are quite high of that. Eidolon is really good against us. So here, we could not play anything. Playing things and not playing things is actually the same amount of damage. So if we like just play a tap land, my opponent's going to tap for 2. That's the equivalent of casting one of these cards. So I'm going to draw a Grove and play Knight. So then my opponent can't attack, and we only take 2 damage. Then we can untap and maybe draw another mana source to like Green Sun for Qasali Pridemage, which is pretty important in the matchup. If we happen to draw a land as our bottom card, and if not, we have other options. If we don't see a mana source as our bottom card, we can just play the tap land. It makes us take pretty vulnerable to. Oh, okay, that's pretty bad for us. Yep. Yeah, I mean there was a chance of that, and I sort of made the play that played into that. But the alternative is probably not much better. Okay, now we have a Scavenging Ooze, and we're not out of range of a second Stirring Blaze, but I'm going to play like our opponent doesn't have it, because if they do, we're in a lot of trouble. So hopefully we get Scooz gets to survive. We can run Deathrite Shaman into Chalice to put in the graveyard to fuel Scooz. So we're sort of beginning to turn the corner right now. Actually, I'm gonna be right back. All right, guys, I'm back, and after thinking a little bit more about my line here, I think what I should have done is draw the tap land, play the tap land. That would make me more vulnerable to price of progress, but that card is just really good against us at any point in the game. And then we could Green Sun Zenith for 4 to get Qasali Pridemage, and then blow up one of these guys. Here, we're going to go ahead and keep Scavenging Ooze on the defensive. My opponent won't have a ton of cards that do a lot here. They can't attack into Scavenging Ooze, because then we'll gain life, and then we'll be able to fight back. They also, if they cast Price Progress, we can turn Thespian Stage into a mountain, which means we only take 2 damage, which is pretty good for us. And then the way that it is now, the Lake King should favor us right now. Now here we can take 4, go to 8. And eat a creature with Scavenging Ooze, go to 9. I think we're not going to do that. Because again, we're looking for just a fetch land would be great. So now we we can get a 3-drop, a knight, or a. So I think we're casting Greensling here. Like we wouldn't be able to save our Scavenging Ooze from a 2-mana bolt anyway. The only downside here is that we're taking 6 rather than 4 damage off of Price of Progress. The alternative line was to play a Chalice for 2 and then just have Price of Progress locked out, put our opponent on a very small number of cards that kill us. But instead, we're going to play Qasali Pridemage, which, when it gets sacked, will put 2 creatures in the graveyard, which is 2 life. And then we can Abrupt Decay, losing 2 life, killing the idol and getting 1 life back. We are net up 1 life from that play. And then we deal with these rather problematic permanents. This card is pretty huge in the matchup, in my opinion. It also provides, like, our Abrupt Decays are often overloaded just because we have to use them as creature removal. And there's 4 idle and then 1 or 2-ish Sulfuric Vortex also as cards that we would like to get rid of. Well, Horizon Canopy is not great. But neither is Dryad Arbor. I think we're going to draw life from the Loam. And then we can attack with Scavenging Ooze for the Exalter. Any amount of blocks on my opponent's side increase our life total further. And if they don't block, we get to put 2 creatures in the graveyard and then Gross Ooze twice. I always mess this up. So if we're not Gross Ooze, then I guess we just do this on end step. That was a mistake on my part due to the interface. I'm not sure that, like, when it gives me priority in blocks, if that's sort of before blocks happen or not. I mean, I should know, I just didn't. Exalted is apparently broken. My opponent's flooding out pretty bad here, so I'm very willing to believe that that's 3 or 4 1-drops in their hand. Your combat's not going to go well for my opponent. So we block 1, and then we can naturalize the other. Just as long as, like, I don't mess up Hapduus on next mage. Yeah, Pridemage is super solid here. Swab's another card we're not super thrilled to see in this matchup. And what I think I'm going to do is draw Horizon Canopy. Actually, now we're getting into the range of like taking 8 damage off of Price is pretty major. They could just draw some, like, Rift Bolts or whatever to finish us off after that. So instead of doing that, I'm going to play Bob. Because we can guarantee we're never going to, or almost never going to take damage off of him. Or we'll take this too, but we're not going to take any more damage. On the other hand, we could Abrupt Decay, take 2 damage, gain a life. I think I prefer that. We're missing a bunch of damage now. We could have dealt an extra 3 damage to our opponent at this point. Part of this is like I'm not playing Paper Magic, and I'm sort of new to commentating, so the amount of I'm sort of wasting brain power on that instead of playing through all the lines, and also the interface is like a little new to me. But I think we're in a good enough position that those 3 points won't end up mattering. Or I guess it wasn't 3 damage because we would gain our opponent a life, but it was more than 1 damage over however many turns this is going to go. Again, I'm not playing out these lands when I normally would have, just to avoid losing the game to like 2 price of progresses. Because right now we are just out of range of that. That's 6 damage from 1, 12 damage from 2. Okay, so we could sort of just chalk this game up to luck, in that Chalice is probably like 4-for-1-ing our opponent right now, and they've sort of flared out. So if there's any takeaway here, it's that Chalice is an extremely important Magic card, especially pre-board. Post-board, the opponent usually has 3, maybe 4 ways to get rid of it, but it'll also just buy you a ton of time. So we're going to go ahead and just attack. That'll put our opponent to 2. Oh. Looks like I misclicked. There's like some argument to not attack with a knight, but we're at... Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and not attack with the knight, because our opponent has to block this anyway, and attacking with the knight doesn't change the clock. Yep. We can also just sacrifice Scrubland now, but I'm going to go ahead and play around the most I can, because we can then also use Thespian Siege. The alternative line is Great Sense looking for something else, maybe for a Gaddock Teeg, to blank Fire Blast. But I'm actually not sure what's correct here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 mana to work with. It costs 3 mana to get Gaddock Teeg. You know what we're going to do instead? We're going to get Gaddock Teeg and then leave Night up to fetch Wasteland to blow up one of our other lands that I think is the minimum amount of damage we can take from the cards our opponent could potentially have. And this also leaves 1 more mana for the creature we just killed. Okay, I think our opponent is moving on to the phase where they show us how many 1-drops they have. In case you were wondering, this feels really good. So there's not a ton of Burn in my meta. I played Burn twice, and that was during the Treasure Cruise era. There were people that were practicing for whatever GP was coming up. And there were probably players that were newer to the format that picked up Burn just because it was cheap, and it was just worth to go to the GP for the mat or whatever. So I don't put a lot of stock in that testing. I felt pretty favored then. But okay, who's this targeting? Yeah, I can't do anything. I mean, I could get a Karakas, but that's not happening. It's not worth it for me. Right. So I mean, the thing with Burn is a lot of newer players play it, so it's pretty easy to beat those players. I imagine good Burn players, it's significantly harder. But I've never had the experience of just like not being able to win against the deck, which is part of the reason why I'm testing right now. So let's bring in all of this. Swords gains life, especially when there's no Chalice. Thalia pins them on mana and makes combat difficult. Rex Sage because they have plenty of targets, and then we can also bring in Pyroclasm. And whether or not we do depends on how many cards we can take out. Some people like Bob in the matchup, but some people like Bob in every matchup. He actively loses us life, and this is not a matchup about card advantage. Dismember is a removal spell, but it's so often going to be like prohibitively expensive life-wise to cast. Teeg blanks 4 cards. All right, I forgot. Since we're playing such a long series, we're going to go ahead and not board the first time, just to get 2 pre-board games and then a bunch of post-board games. So this was the initial configuration.
Your game has started.
So this is a hand that we wouldn't keep against anyone. There's just a bunch of mana sources. So here we can go Forest into Dryad Arbor into get a Plateau, play Knight on turn 2. That's fine. I mean, it's not very good against Burn, but it's okay. And I'm generally fine going to 5, but there's no reason to. This hand is like keepable enough. Yep. The reason 2 mulligan would be that this hand has neither a Mox Diamond nor a Chalice, which are both extremely good in the matchup. So maybe I should have done that. But again, I'm not super experienced against the deck. Like I imagine landing a Chalice pre-board at any point would basically win me the game. But there's enough stuff that like maybe it won't. So instead of fetching Plateau, playing Knight, we can fetch Plateau, play Punishing Fire. Because Knight would be, well, Knight would be a 3/3. So, okay. Right, that forced our hand to just Punishing Fire. Because we're not playing up these Bobs. They'll just help our opponent. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of things that deal damage to us and draw cards. And we don't want any more of that. Oh, nice. Okay. So now I think we're back to Knight. Partly because it's castable again, and partly because it's going to be out of range of Searing Blaze. So generally, I'm going to get a Taiga. If I can correctly click the card. So if we're playing around Price of Progress, generally you want to keep up all your Wastelands, like an equal number of Wastelands per duel that you're using that's on the board. And Knight represents sort of 2 Wastelands. If he's acting like you could sacrifice a Taiga and then use the Wasteland you get from the Taiga to Wasteland something else. And also, since you're keeping him up anyway, you can force through the... That's unfortunate for us. You can force through the Dark Depths combo, which is one of the faster ways to kill in this deck. I'm gonna... We're not using our mana on anything else. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill that. Did I? Okay, sometimes the interface lags a little bit, which can be a little scary. So if we keep up this Wasteland, we can attack with Knight, and it's a 5/5, which means it's a pretty significant clock. My opponent doesn't have any creatures, they only have 3 cards in hand. Maybe we can actually survive through that. There's no way to actually gain life here. There's no way to like really disrupt what our opponent's doing. The alternative is we can play Dark Confidant. That's awful here. I can actually just lose the game. We can also proactively Wasteland our Taiga to put 2 more lands in the graveyard to make this a 7/7, which would put our opponent to like 1 in 2 turns. But I'm gonna go ahead and not do that because then we're down to 2 mana sources, and we just do less things because we have less mana. I mean, our situation like pretty grim if these are live cards. Mhm. Well, our opponent is not just killing us, so I guess they're not 2 lightning bolts. And I guess I have to put them on 2 lands, or like 2 situational cards. So it doesn't change the clock to Wasteland here. So I'm just not going to, and I'm going to attack with Knight again. So this is a worse kill than going for Dark Depths, because my opponent could just play a blocker right now. But at the same time, or they could have just had like Goblin Guides, which would be pretty bad for us. But at the same time, we had the option to cast spells had we drawn them. So this was sort of a less all-in plan. We could have been casting out our Queen Suns or whatever. I think it's gonna be a blocker. This does 3 damage. There isn't a 2 damage spell, so like this 1 extra damage isn't changing the math at all. If we draw a removal spell for the Swift Spear, then we win. If we activate Knight, get a Grove, put our opponent to 6, put our opponent to 4 with the Grove, Wasteland Bloodstainmire before we tell him what's up. We can get him to 1, which isn't enough, because this will take him down from 3 to 1. Okay, there it is. Cancel skip. So this isn't actually going to do anything. It's just a desperation play. Yep. Okay. Our opponent checked if we knew how our cards worked. So we're boarding in all these white cards for reasons I probably explained twice now. Dismember costs a ton of life. It's no good. Bob costs us life. You saw there that we won the game on 3 life. If Bob flipped a Knight, that was just game over for us. Depending, I mean, there's one argument to be made that we would have drawn a Knight 1 turn faster. Maybe we could have played it or whatever. In matchups where the opponent is completely immune to Wasteland, life roll tends to be pretty bad. Like you can maybe get away with like, maybe you can find some cycle ends and do that whole thing, but it's way less frequent, way less good. So we were thinking about getting Pyroclasm, and that kills off all of his creatures. But we want Abrupt Decay because it's also neutralized against his enchantment. So maybe instead of punishing the thing is, how many creatures of ours does it kill? Right, it kills these 3, which are pretty decent creatures. It kills these 2 guys. It rarely kills Scavenging Ooze, and it kills Thalia. And I think Thalia sort of pushes it over the limit, because then we have a critical mass of 2 mana 2/1s or 2 mana 2/2s or whatever. So that thing on average is going to kill more of our things than it does of theirs. I mean, it would have on average killed more of our things anyway, just because we tend to play with more creatures. But we're not trying to gain value from it. We're not mulliganing this. This is an insane hand. We're trying to kill 2 of their things, because 2 of their things are way more important than 2 of our things often. So we're going to strand the swords in our hand, which I'm not upset about at all, because, well, so because Chalice is insane. But the alternative there is to play Athalia, which immediately blanks its Goblin Guide. But if our opponent has Lightning Bolt, they can just spend a Lightning Bolt on Thalia. So we get punished if our opponent has a 1-drop and a land, and that's really not a place where I want to be. So I'll take 2 more damage. in order to not take damage for the rest of the game, basically. Now we're going to fetch a basic here. There's some chance our opponent can like smash the Mox and try to get us color screwed, but it's not worth playing like 2 or 3 non-basics in order to avoid that rather fringe scenario. We're going to throw away Thespian because it casts way less of our cards. It's not green. And we don't currently have a knight, so... I mean, we're throwing away the chance to combo period because we don't have a Loam. But there's no like path to a knight in our hand, so the card is very likely not going to be doing anything for a very long time. Yep, taking 2 more. That's a good card. So there's this question of, well, okay, now the first duel you should always play out. There's no point like trying to turn their 2-mana card into something worse than shock. That just stifles your development too much. I mean, there is a point, but there's not enough of a point. Okay. Oh, it looks like our opponent did not sideboard. Okay, so it seems like this is going to be less than stellar testing. So the deck generally boards in, like they can board out some 1-drops, and they can board in smashes instead. So yeah, this is not a great situation for them. That's nice. So we have 2 options. We can attack for 2, then punishing fire at the Goblin Guide, or well, not decay him because my card's better than punishing fire. Or we can play a Sylvan Library, and I think I prefer to play a Sylvan Library. It's a card selection tool that I'd like to get started sooner rather than later. Maybe I can also find like a Wasteland, or land plus Chalice, or lands into Chalice on 2. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I still can't attack. So I'm just going to play land and pass. If I attack, my opponent could double block, lose something, and then get blown out. But more than likely, they're just going to take 2 damage and then try to deal 4 to me. And then I can punishing fire the Eidolon, which means I'm still taking 4. My opponent wants to be in the tank about something. So now at the end of the turn, we can, I guess, safely kill the Eidolon. We go down to 13, but then we stop being punished for casting spells. Okay, so now we can continue attacking again, because we can decay the Goblin Guide if it would do damage to us. Or play a Knight instead. So we're putting these back both because we don't necessarily want to play out more lands, and Knight is really good and we should play it instead, and we don't want to take 4 damage. Okay, so now we're like pretty firmly in the driver's seat. Our opponent could have Searing Blaze, but it wouldn't help because that's a total of 5 damage with the Goblin Guide, and you can make your 9 to 6/6 by Wastelanding or Taiga. Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate that our opponent didn't board me did. Maybe if we're requiring 5 wins to end this session, that's what 9 games potentially. Maybe the first 3 should be game 1s. Maybe the first 4 should be game 1s. Well, no, I don't think it should be. The play test, it's not just supposed to be a magnified match. There's twice as many post-board games as pre-board games normally, so we should sort of reflect that in the testing. I'm gonna go ahead and sacrifice this. It takes us off Abrupt Decay. If we really want, we can use our fetch land to enable it again. Now maybe it's more correct to be taking some of this damage and playing less defensively, but I have a knight, and I'm dealing 8 damage a turn, which is a 2-turn clock if he doesn't block, a 3-turn clock when he does. So I'm going to draw Punishing Fire, refuse to pay life on the next turn. So I'm just gonna attack. If our opponent wants to not block, that's fine. Yeah, if that would be more correct, and I wouldn't have a knight in this case. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'd respond the same way, but now that I know the timing that my opponent is talking about, I think I would just have Wasteland to kill itself, especially if I know that I'm drawing knight. Okay, so now my opponent's sideboarding, and there isn't really anything that changes for me on the play or on the draw. I tend not to have anything change. Maybe I should be thinking a little bit harder about my sideboarding decisions, but I don't know. I don't think there's a ton that changes. I mean, the way that I mulligan obviously changes on play versus draw. The kinds of hands that you would want. The kinds of cards that you would want in your deck generally don't change that much. They're either live or they're not.
Your game has started.
Some people who mulligan less aggressively than me do have a play draw change. So maybe it's just interchangeable. Like against elves, they don't want slow cards on the draw. But against elves, I don't keep slow hands on the play or the draw, especially on the draw. I'm going to keep this. It has 2 pieces of removal that synergize pretty well if I get to do that. And we don't have a chalice, which is super insane stuff, but that's probably fine. Turn 1, we can lead with Savannah to keep up swords or Tranquil Thicket. This is a good sign. No Goblin Guide. Nope. I actually have done this once, and I ended up taking an extra 1 damage because my opponent redirected it back to me. I was killing an Eidolon. I thought it was super clever. It turned out it was a slight mistake. So we have Chalice, which is awesome. We're just gonna keep up sword / Tranquil Thicket. I think we're just sorting any creature he plays. It's certainly not a priority to cycle Tranquil Thicket, and oh sweet. That is even better for us. We get to play a basic land. I apologize for the noise in the background in case you guys can hear that. Yep. If I had to bet who would win at this point, I think my money is still on my opponent. But they didn't play a second one drop in response to my chalice. So maybe this was all they drew. Like I remember I tried to play Burn for like 2 matches just to see what I would be doing from the other side against Loam, and I boarded out my whatever was the worst one drop, like Lava Spike probably. We can choose to take 4 off of Price of Progress, and I think that's correct here, just because we have a ton of. So maybe this wasn't correct. If we have a ton of lands, we should be playing them out. If my opponent smashes Chalice and then casts a creature, we want to Swords it, so we're forced to play the Scrubland if we want to make that play. But also, we eventually want to Punishing Fire something. So the more correct play would be to play Taiga, use Forest and Taiga to cast Sylvan Library, queue up Savannah. Okay, that's good for us. We're only taking 4. Had our opponent been a little bit, well, had more of a nut draw, I guess. They need Smashes or Variants, or the equivalent, in order to punish us. Seems like our opponent is considering playing maybe another Price of Progress. Taking for a while, it's probably some non-trivial decision. Okay, they decided not to do anything. Which is probably good for us, if I had to guess. Okay, this is excellent. Mox Diamond is excellent. So what I could do right now is take Mox Diamond, put Teeg on top, play Horizon Canopy, cycle it to draw Teeg, and then I guess you don't even technically need the Mox Diamond to do that. Okay, we can. So the downside of keeping Mox Diamond in our hand, the upside is our opponent can miscount our mana, and we can choose to throw something worse away to it. We just be like a little bit more informed about this decision later on when it actually doesn't matter. The downside is if they play an idol on this cost 2 life, so I'm just gonna play it out and not be too cute. So playing this here sort of turns off Fire Blast, because our opponent can choose to remove their entire mana base to deal 4 to us, which do this at 5. And I mean, maybe if they have like say Price of Progress plus that card, they can leave us at 1, but they have nothing. Like just sacrificing both their mountains is kind of awful. They might have 3 Price of Progresses. That would be pretty bad for us. So I guess I can see why our opponent was like a little hasty on the first one. They're pretty aware that I'm not going to just play out whatever lands I have. So they want to get that damage in, and then they're also stuck on 2 mana, so they can't just keep these things forever. On the other hand, they're at 18 life. I think they could use their life total as a resource. Great. I was a little worried because I forgot this card was on top of our deck. Ooh. Right, if our opponent had another price, they would just kill us. So I'm going to play this out and not worry about price for the rest of the game. So many people watching this are probably like not super thrilled about these swords that have not been doing anything in our hand. Wow, that's big. And I'm not super thrilled about them either. But they're probably good enough as healing salves in the matchup that we should have them. I mean, the downside is like they're often blanks, and they're blanks when they least need to be, or they most need to be something else. And here we are dead. I'm trying to see if there's like any way we can get out of the situation, and I think there isn't. Yeah, looks like we're just dead. So maybe this is an emotional decision, but I'm really not thrilled with the fact that swords, in a lot of the cases, are going to be dead. Bobs are also dead in a lot of the cases, and we took those out. Let's bring in these 2 cards. In the past, I've played and then leave one swords in. Not trying to. That doesn't feel like a super correct or a super informed decision, but just to have a slightly higher amount of cards to check with Goblin Guide. Maelstrom Pulse, because there's a ton of cards that dead and naturalize that we want to get rid of, or I mean, there just ends up being a lot of them. Okay, this is great. So turn 1 swords, and then turn 2 chalice. We can't get red white, nor would we want to. So if we're not forced to play the swords right now, we can just get a Bayou, because we almost certainly want Abrupt Decay. Maybe the Maelstrom Pulse was incorrect. Maybe Marin is just too slow in the matchup. Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, it feels like a little bit of an emotional decision. We're not seeking to play out too many lands, so expensive cards like Marin are not very good. So here we need to decide whether or not we're taking this 1 damage. And I think we are. You know, let's not. So this. Because we have access to Punishing Fire here, we can get a Savannah. Although, I don't know, there's something to be said to like having a whole 3 blanks in your deck. I'm going to throw away this Grove. This Black Source unlocks Abrupt Decay, which means that we don't necessarily need to bring back Punishing Fire. The alternative, either way, is our opponent would be able to 4 us with Price of Progress. And as you can see, when I chalice someone like the card, I immediately start worrying about his Price of Progress, because that's someone that you can actively or proactively play around. So now we really want to draw a fetch land, so we can activate this. Ooh, okay, yeah, so we can activate this and keep up Wasteland. Otherwise, just like good spells will be fine. So our chalice is getting finished, which is to be expected in post-board games, which puts us in a pretty bad spot. The only thing we have going for us is like the game is, I guess on turn 3, and we're at 19 life. Yep. So I'm going to see if I can catch this Swift Spear. Oh, okay. In that case, let's Punishing Fire the Swift Spear. This is pretty bad for us, because we no longer have Abrupt Decay, and we no longer have Grove of the Burnwillows. But 2 smashes is a lot of smashes. I don't know why our opponent is so upset with the ones that should be upset. Well, okay, let's turn out okay for us. That's a really good Magic card. Price of Progress is at its best right now. So our opponent is pausing in their draw step. Not sure why that is. They might just be okay. No, they're now in their main step. Sometimes I pause my draw step because I like see the card, and then I formulate a plan on how to use it. So that might be what's happening. Progress is really good here. Okay, so we can 4 our opponent, or we can get a basic and 3 our opponent. I guess 4ing them does the most damage. There's not a ton of good options here. Yeah, let's just attack. I think we lost this game. Rift Bolt. Yeah, we're at 4. Yep, we're dead. So more swords wouldn't have helped that game. Our opponent seems to be on about 12 creatures, for which we don't need more removal. The alternative here is, okay, like Choke is just super dead, Dismember is bad swords, Dry Knight's super dead. Bob loses us life. Revoker doesn't have text on it. I guess we can use Loam, but we also don't want to expand our mana base. So the main reason for Marin was to sort of, in the late game, like regrow threats that our opponent may have put into the graveyard. I don't like that reasoning. We're still going to keep the pulse.
Your game has started.
Just because it's like fine removal. This is great. So we're going to get a basic here, because the second one can get a white source. And when he has Zenith for 0, there's a decent argument for not casting a Zenith on 0 here, because it doesn't actually help us play anything, because I don't think our plan is to play a Knight as soon as possible. But plans can change. And we can maybe get our opponent to like Bolted Word. Sweet. We'll go ahead and play out the Windswept Heath. The downside is possibly taking us off black, but we have only 3 black cards left in the deck, so that's fine. I'm gonna ask to roll that back because that was just blatantly incorrect. We should use our 1-drop before turning it off. Oh, that's why I sort of didn't notice the swords, because I guess I just drew it. Now it is on Savannah. Okay. So what I mean by this comment is that if I draw Chalice, I'm like way more favored than if I'm not. If our opponent smashes the Chalice, then we're back to where we started. That kind of stuff. Whereas like the average card in the deck kind of doesn't matter. That's perfectly fine. So there's like some argument to playing out Athalia, but not really enough of one. Next turn we can play out Athalia and then do something else. Maybe throwing away this Savannah, this plateau for some other land, some other better land. Maybe Horizon Canopy. Excellent. Okay, so we could we just like totally play into. Actually, let's not play that extra land. We attack. We can play Qasali Pridemage attack for 6, and then blow up the Fear Vortex after it does 2 damage to our opponent. I think that's the play. There's no reason to make this decision. I mean, as long as it's after the shock that my opponent gets, it doesn't really matter when it happens. So we're just going to do it on end step. With our opponent's drawing plenty of land, so this Thalia wouldn't have helped a ton. I mean, had she been a little bit more convenient to play, like had we not drawn the knight, then we totally would have. Mm-hmm. Or say maybe like it sort of punishes Riftbolt, then we can pay another mana for it. So I'm incentivized to cast it next turn. Also incentivized by the fact that there's no other spells in my hand. Well, that changed things. Our opponent didn't play anything. Let's just go ahead and do this, because this ends the game in 1 turn cycle. So on our next turn, we can be attacking for 20. Mm-hmm. We might be dead here. We're going down to 2 on their upkeep. Yeah, so the video is getting pretty long, so this game is going to be the last one. And it's ending either this turn or next. So our opponent currently knows whether or not they've won or lost. And we're just waiting to find out. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see this being the bad match, but it is. Okay, it looks like we won. Right, because either that or our opponent's just messing with them and they have a lightning bolt. So we should respond to this trigger because it's not a May. That might force the stage into our hand. Okay, just checking this that we didn't like discard it to something else. That's a pretty smart play. All right. Yeah, it looks like our opponent can't win now. Valley different. We're not gonna attack with Knight, just in case there's a price of progress. Their opponent decided not to play last turn or something. There's no real reason to do that. All right. Hopefully, you guys found this game to be entertaining and educational.